The chamber has no door, yet billions pass through. A quiet handshake on the trading floor. A drawer in a vault deep beneath an old European manor. For most of us, wealth is banknotes, stock tickers, and sudden headlines. But for the world's richest families, it is generations of strategy, empire, and hidden systems. This is the story of how a handful of dynasties build fortunes that outlast lifetimes, shape nations, and wield power in shadows.
In the late Middle Ages, trade routes crisscrossed continents and a new kind of family emerged. Merchants, bankers, financiers who were more than just wealthy. They were architects of money and power. In Florence, the Medici Bank financed popes and princes. The Fugger family of Augsburg became Europe's first mega-capitalists. Weaving together land, credit, and commerce, they became a prototype for modern dynastic wealth. Their influence was not just financial, it was political. Their agency shaped kingdoms, the rise of central banking, the pathways of colonial expansion. By the 19th century, as industrialization swept the West, wealth consolidated into sharper form. The Rothschild banking network spanned London, Paris, Frankfurt, and Vienna. They financed governments, armies, railroads. Their names whispered in corridors of power. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the Gilded Age gave America families like the Rockefeller and Vanderbilt new models. Vast resource monopolies, rail empires, oil-soaked fortunes. Their success was embedded in the structure of the modern economy, corporations, trusts, global trade. The systems they mastered, finance, extraction, monopoly, became the tools of empire.
And then the modern age brought another shift. Families that built not just fortunes, but entire systems aligned with globalization, technology, state resources, and sovereign assets. Consider the Walton family of the United States, heirs to the retail empire founded by Sam Walton. Their collective net worth exceeds $400 billion. Their value ties not only to stores and consumer goods, but to the infrastructure of global supply chains, labor markets, and the American economy itself. Or the Al Mahyan of Abu Dhabi, from pearl fishermen and camel herdsmen to sovereign wealth, oil riches, and investment stakes around the world. Their power is partially state-based, partially corporate, but fully entrenched. These families did not just accumulate wealth, they accumulated influence. What underpins this lineage of power? First, the mechanism of inheritance. Wealth passed down, privileges sustained across centuries. As recent research shows, all billionaires under 30 today inherited their fortunes rather than built them from scratch. The so-called Great Wealth Transfer is already underway, with trillions expected to shift in the coming decades.
Secondly, the interconnection between state and commerce. Many of these families built fortunes through resources, oil, land, minerals, or through state proximity, concessions, monopolies, sovereign investment. For example, the Al Nahyan family transformed oil reserves via the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority into global stakes, parking billions in infrastructure, equity, and satellite sovereign funds. Third, the ability to adapt across generations, from merchant bankers of Renaissance Italy to tycoons of industry to modern global investment families. They learned to shift with the epoch. The structure of wealth changed, from land and gold to industrial capital, to financial markets and intangible holdings. But the story is not only about accumulation, it is about systems of influence. When a family holds X% of a corporation that supplies the daily consumables of millions, when another family controls vast state resources and invests those reserves into global real estate, technology firms, and infrastructure, their wealth becomes not merely personal but systemic. It flows, directly or indirectly, into the architecture of economies. The Walton family doesn't just own shares of a retail chain. Its business model shapes labor, consumption, manufacturing, shipping lanes. The Al-Nahyan family doesn't merely hold oil deposits. It controls access, pricing power, sovereign investment, and geopolitical leverage.
These dynamics foster a paradox, wealth that is concentrated yet structurally invisible. While headlines shout about tech founders and entrepreneurs, many of the largest fortunes are quietly inherited dynasties, centralized through trusts, holding companies, sovereign funds. They benefit from opacity and longevity. They are less about flash and more about control. Control of flow, control of institutions, control of resources. In the present day, this legacy matters for three reasons. Firstly, global inequality. The existence of mega-families with fortunes larger than some nations highlights how economic dynamism and political power converge. For instance, the wealth of a single family surpassing the GDP of smaller middle-income countries is no longer rare. Secondly, policy and governance. These families influence regulation, lobbying, tax structures, philanthropy, and capital deployment. Their interests intertwine with state interests. Thirdly, intergenerational stability and risk. As wealth transitions from one generation to another, the question is whether those dynasties will maintain their relevance or fracture under new economic regimes. The Great Wealth Transfer suggests a potential renewal or redistribution of power, but also a consolidation if newcomers absorb old structures.
Consider then a simple visual, a map of global trade, overlaid with investment arrows from sovereign funds, private holding companies, estate trusts. At each node, a family name. Behind each arrow, a decision not made by an executive in a suit, but by the heirs to a legacy forged centuries ago. The system hums with the quiet hum of continuity rather than the chaos of disruption. Recognizing that gives us insight not just into who holds the money, but how the world's economic architecture is designed. In conclusion, the secret history of the world's richest families is not merely about dollars or mansions. It is about power that flows through generations, across borders and across sectors, embedded in the fabric of economies, politics, and society. It reminds us that while technology, entrepreneurship, and disruption dominate headlines, the deeper structure of wealth often remains unchanged. Empires rise and fall, industries fade, but some dynasties endure, and through endurance shape the world. The question for our time is, as the economic landscape shifts, will these families adapt, or will the next generation of wealth holders redraw the map entirely?